Someone asked me for a donation for a swimming pool, so I gave them a glass of water.
Yeah, that's not funny.
Oh, Jeffrey. Now, I don't know if Jeffrey is trying his hand at stand-up comedy or what, but I would highly recommend he not quit his day job. However, keep in mind that most of Jeffrey's TikToks are aimed at kids, so maybe someone with a more infantile mindset would find that joke funny. Now, what made the joke not land for me was the lipstick and woman's blouse paired with the thicker 5 o'clock shadow than I could ever dream of growing in, and tufts of chest hair puffing out of said woman's blouse. Anyway, welcome back. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I have a crazy video for you guys today. Just 1 second, I'm going to show you guys a clip of an interaction between 3 urban youths and a trans woman who is live streaming from a cafe, and it is glorious. Plus, we got a bunch of other woke TikTok insanity. We got a lot to cover, so let's get into it. Now, if you place your attention on the screen for a moment, here we have a picture of a trans woman who captioned the photo, "Would you misgender me?" Huh?
Stop being a girly man.
All right, so next up, this clip is about 1 minute and 45 seconds long, but it is worth every second of it. So here we have an interaction between this trans woman who is live streaming from this cafe and 3 young fellas who walk by and decide to make a comment that this person doesn't like. Now from there, it goes completely off the rails. Roll the film, please.
I am not, sir. Do you want to say that to the camera? Hundreds and hundreds of people watching you?
Me right now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no.
No, go ahead. You just called me a man. Don't be a coward. Don't be a coward. Yeah, you're a coward. Come on over. Say what you got to say to me. Oh, you don't want to call me a man to my face? Come on over. What do you got to say? What do you got to say about transgender people?
I didn't know you were trans.
Yeah, go ahead.
You didn't know he was trans.
Go ahead.
I did not know this man was trans. Wait, what do you go by? What do you go by?
Does it matter?
It does, because I'm asking you.
Say what you got to say. There's a lot of people watching you.
The real question is, it doesn't matter if you're transgender or not.
Are you with that? Are you with the people that march and be like, "We're coming for your kids"? That's where it's bad. That's when it gets bad.
Oh, you need to stay up. What's your name?
Me?
Yeah.
K.
K?
K.
K-A-Y?
K-A-Y.
Okay, and what's your name?
I don't have to give you any of my information.
You certainly don't. What's your
My
name?
name's JJ, and is y'all thing a cult? It's like LGBTTL cult or something?
Can I ask why you didn't step in? While you were standing and watching, they called me a They were verbally harassing me.
I didn't hear him call you that. I didn't know. I honestly had no idea what conversation you were having.
Insanity.
Now that was an interesting interaction, and apparently that trans woman is a provocateur and does that at all kinds of different places. Sits down, live streams, provokes people into saying something, and then when they do, that person turns the phone and says, "Oh, you want to say that on live stream on the camera in front of hundreds of people?" Now, most people back down and say, "No, no, no," because they don't want the Rainbow Warriors coming after them. They don't want to get doxxed. They know how these people are, so they back off. Those young men who obviously come from an urban environment, they didn't back off. They had no problem. Well, at first they were a little dodgy, but then they had no problem stepping up and saying how they felt. And props to that young man, Kay, who said, "Are you one of the ones that are marching and saying you're coming after the kids?" And then Kay said, "Stay out of the schools." So much props to Kay for standing up and saying that. And also at the end, where that person went up to the employee and said, "Why didn't you stick up for me? They called me this and they called me that." Well, first of all, no, they didn't. Second of all, that employee Isn't your superhero? That employee doesn't have to swoop in and save you because your fifis got hurt. Like, let's get real here. Oh, the entitlement of these people is unbelievable. And it was all because one of those young men walked by and said, sir. Now, were they trying to provoke that trans woman? Possibly, I can see that. But just ignore it. These people can't ignore it. They can't ignore being called sir. Roll it.
One of two things tends to happen. Either they backpedal really quickly and call me ma'am, or they make really hard eye contact with me and they go, sir, again, even harder, to electric boogaloo. And I'm never really sure if the motivation behind that is because they think they're being very supportive of a transmasculine person, or, and this is what I suspect, they think that they're aggressively and purposely misgendering a trans feminine person. Mainly because I'm really tall and I tend to have nails. But I try not to think about it too hard because, like, at the end of the day, they find me masculine. And hey, if they want to waste their sirs on me instead of inflicting them on the trans girlies of the world, I'll take it. Consider it a sir donation. A surcharge.
What the f*** are you talking about?
All because that person was called sir. And listen, I apologize. I could not follow along with that at all. I don't know if I was being distracted by the hair or what, but it seems to be happening a lot with these people lately. I don't know what the hell they're talking about. Anyway, so next up, so this picture is, once again, a biological male who identifies as a trans woman and then calls themselves a lesbian. Now here, you're going to hear an explanation as to why that is. Check it out.
She's a man.
A few moments later.
When I say trans men can be lesbians or trans masks can be lesbians or date lesbians, one of the first things people say is usually, okay, well then how do we change the definition of lesbian because it's supposed to be non-men loving non-men? And I would encourage you to think about defining sexuality in the same way that we define gender. 50 years ago, we defined woman as someone with a vagina. Now we realize that language isn't inclusive, so we say anyone who identifies as a woman is a woman, not someone who identifies as a woman and wears dresses to prove it, or someone who identifies as a woman and goes through hormone replacement therapy to prove it. We just assume that if someone uses a label in good faith, that they're probably a woman. The non-men loving non-men label was taken from Tumblr in 2014 as a way to revise the lesbian label to be more inclusive. And the other critique is, well then cis het men can call themselves lesbians. Okay, there are cis men right now calling themselves trans women, and they don't do that in good faith. They do it to get a rise out of us. And it ultimately has no effect on queer people, other than getting conservatives to rally against us. But like, just because a cis man wants to say that he's a trans woman is a gotcha moment, doesn't make trans women identities less real. Just because a cis het man wants to make a joke about him being a lesbian, doesn't mean that trans men and masks are inherently predators and shouldn't be allowed in the lesbian community. And the third critique I get is, well, I'm a trans man or a trans mask and I don't want to be a lesbian or date a lesbian. Great. You don't have to. No one has to date anyone they don't want to date. Lesbians don't have to date non-binary people. Trans people don't have to date cis people.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
All right, guys, real quick before we go any further, I just want to give a huge shout out to the sponsor of today's video. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to let this loop on the screen for your viewing pleasure, of course. Now, what is it, you ask? Well, it's exactly as it appears to be. It's just a picture of this hefty young fella, first as a man, and as you can see there, picture of this hefty young fella as a woman. So there's that. Anyway, today's video is being brought to us by the YouTube channel Lynn and God's Angels. Lynn and God's Angels, thank you guys so much for sponsoring today's video. I really appreciate all the love and support. And listen, if you're looking for some nice, peaceful, relaxing music to meditate to or just to chill out and relax to, I highly recommend you going and checking out Lynn and God's Angels YouTube channel after this video, which I will link in the description box below. So once again, Lynn and God's Angels, a sponsor of today's video. Now, if you'd like to sponsor the next video and help support the channel, there is a PayPal link in the description box below, and I will say your full name as a sponsor of said video unless stated otherwise by you. Okay, I can't look at this anymore. Oof.
You look ridiculous.
All right, next up, we have a post from the Illinois Education Association. Now, this lovely lady who works for the Illinois Education Association is going to tell us what is allowed and what's not allowed in school classrooms as far as pride flags and Black Lives Matter flags and so on and so forth. So the post says, displaying an LGBTQ plus pride flag, Black Lives Matter poster, or a symbol diversity in your classroom, ? Know your rights as an educator. Roll it.
Educators across the country want to support their students by displaying inclusive symbols in their classroom. But what are your rights when you want to display a pride flag or a Black Lives Matter poster? First, schools can control displays in classrooms, but when they choose to do so, they have to be even-handed and they can't single out certain viewpoints for discrimination. Second, many districts have policies in place that control what you can display in your classroom or in your school. You should check your collective bargaining agreement, your employee handbook, the school district's policies. If you haven't seen others display similar symbols in their classrooms, reach out to your union representative first and talk through how best to approach school administrators. If your administrator objects, talk to the union about how best to proceed. You could face discipline if you violate a school rule. Finally, if you disagree with your school district's policy, challenge it. In Connecticut, a local education association joined with parents and students to challenge a school district policy that prohibited the display of pride flags in schools. And they won. Now, in that school district, pride flags can be displayed, and all students know that they are accepted for who they are.
No offense, but it sounds like some fucking commie gobbledygook.
Now, the only acceptable response from that lady would have been, yeah, the only flag you can put in your classroom is either an American flag or a state flag of whatever state you're in. We don't need to be getting political. We don't need to put up flags because of someone's sexual preference or the color of somebody's skin. That's insanity. But nope, she did the exact opposite. So, and listen, I'm fairly certain that if it was up to that lady, they would go to every flagpole in every public school in this country, take the American flag off, and hoist up the rainbow flag. So, listen, I could be wrong. I could have read that lady all wrong. Anyway, next up. So this person, I don't know. This person likes to use the word cis even when someone says, please don't use the word cis. The comment says, I'm not a cis. It's supposed to say cis black woman, but it says COS, C-O-S. I'm not a cis black woman. I'm just a woman. Why y'all adding extra words to describe us? Just describe y'all selves. Roll it.
Cis people, here's what you might as well say when you say things like, don't call me cis. I don't like when you call me cis because I've always had the privilege of just being just person. And because y'all are now putting an adjective in front of my personhood, it makes me feel othered just like y'all. And as trans and non-binary people, y'all are supposed to be the freaks. Y'all are supposed to be categorized, not us, because we're just person. And it's funny because y'all were upset 10 years ago for being called heterosexual. Talking about, don't call me heterosexual, I'm straight. Once again, it's a scientific medical term. I promise you, you will be okay. Tall woman, short woman, white woman, black woman, cis woman, trans woman. It's all a type of women. And under the eyes of patriarchy, it doesn't give a what type you are. Have the day you deserve.
Go yourself.
Now, isn't it interesting how if you tell these people you don't want to be called something, for example, cis, and they still call you that, it's not hateful. However, if the roles are reversed and you misgender them or use the wrong pronouns, that is hateful. Very interesting. Anyway, next up, this person is going to tie in how transphobia was born from white supremacy. Oh, can't wait to hear this. Roll it.
Transphobia was born from white supremacy. It was literally created by racist white dudes who were trying to prove that they were better than indigenous people. Obviously, that didn't work. And then it was cultivated through anti-blackness. And so they created the gender binary that we know today. Transphobia is very new. Being trans is ancient. We have been here for thousands and thousands of years. Transphobia was created as a colonial tactic. These things are interconnected. And Black and Indigenous trans women and Two-Spirit people are the most marginalized people in this country in so-called America, and you have to be fighting for them first. Stop pretending that we're not on stage 7 of genocide. We are. And fighting against genocide is not special treatment. If you come onto my account and you try to make an argument about why trans people shouldn't be supported and say, well, what about blank? That's called the straw man fallacy. And I can promise you that I can also tie that back to colonialism and white supremacy and late stage capitalism. So we're probably on the same groundwork. So stop using all of this BS as an excuse for your transphobia.
That is without a doubt the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You are a idiot.
All right, guys, we are going to be wrapping it up on this one. And of course, we'll be wrapping it up with everybody's least favorite, former Vice President Joe Biden. And speaking of Joe Biden, wait till you guys see the t-shirt I'm releasing probably tomorrow at the latest Sunday featuring former Vice President Joe Biden. I hope you guys enjoy it. Anyway, so Joe Biden gave a speech recently that was just gaffe after gaffe after gaffe. And here is probably the most egregious gaffe out of the whole speech. Anyway, guys, things are getting crazy out there, so please take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Till next time, love you guys. Peace. Roll the film, please.
And we're still feeling the profound loss of the pandemic. As I mentioned, of over 100 people dead. That's 100 empty chairs around the kitchen table.
What the hell did you just say?
So we're still feeling the profound loss of the pandemic, as I mentioned, of over 100 people dead. That's 100 empty chairs around the kitchen table.
What the is wrong with you?
And you ain't black.